Morning. Please be seated. If you've been coming to St. David's for a little while, you probably have figured out that music is one of my love languages. And anytime that I am working on a homily, I usually end up with an earworm all week long on whatever song has attached itself to the scripture that I am going to preach about. And that, of course, happened this week. And I will share it with you because it is, in fact, our family anthem. Looking at the 8-year-old in my family, George, would you like to sing this for the whole parish? It's a classic, friends. None of my children appreciated this. George certainly does not like that this is our family anthem, but they come around when they get a little bit older. It is a classic. It is the Rolling Stones, and it is, you can't always get what you want, right? Um, right. Over and over and over again, as parents, we would sing this to our children. I think because we didn't like the whole, right, you get what you get and you don't get upset, kind of whatever it was that small children and parents would say, we would instead channel Mick Jagger and sing to our children. And understandably, it would frustrate them. And they would walk off in a huff and be all sorts of angry. However, I always found it very interesting that over time, I would occasionally overhear one or more of them at different times singing it to their friends at play dates, or it has come back at us as their parents and been sung to us any number of times. Why is that? Because it's not just children, right, who run into this kind of friction and rub in life, but all of us, where we spend our lives working for, hoping for, yearning for, often ensuring that we do everything we need to get exactly what we want, right? It's a thing. We work, we plan, we sacrifice, right? We wait in the dark for our dreams to materialize because we want what we want. We see it. We see the perfect person, the perfect job, the perfect vacation, the perfect fill in the blank, and we want it and we need it. And we know if we just get it, everything is going to be just fine. Life is going to be glorious, right? Everything's going to work out. Jacob, we hear in this morning's story, this continuation of the wonderful saga that is Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, so on and so forth. Jacob falls in love with a sister, not the oldest sister, but the youngest sister named Rachel. And he so has decided that she is what he wants, what he needs, that he's willing to work 7 years as payment for her hand in marriage. 7 years, that's a long time, right? But the text tells us that was just like a blink of an eye to Jacob. Didn't care about the 7 years because he was in love. And Rachel was perfect. And so they threw a wedding. 7 years working hard labor for the hand of your beloved. They throw a big wedding. It's a feast, we're told. We assume there's dancing and drinking and singing, right, and toasting and debauchery, I'm sure, and a fatted calf has been killed, and all of the great things happen over days of this wedding ritual. And Jacob goes into his wedding tent, and all will be well. And then, because scripture is so fabulous, we get this one line, and in the morning, behold, it was Leah. It wasn't Rachel. The one he wanted was not the woman he woke up to the next morning. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. Now, in your translation, there is not the behold. I don't know why the NRSV took the behold out, but behold was always in the King James and every other. So I can't I can't hear or read the story without hearing the word behold. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. Now, you might have felt sorry for Jacob when you heard this happened. Anyone feel sorry for Jacob when this happened? I mean, that's rough. 7 years of hard work. You wake up the day after your wedding and you find out you're married to the other sister, right? But let's remember who Jacob is, right? Jacob was our scoundrel, our trickster, the one who deceived his own father to get his brothers, his oldest brothers, blessing and inheritance. Yeah? But these things don't just happen to the deceivers of the world, friends. It's not just Jacob who this happens to all of the time. Jacob did, however, I think, try to outrun his past. He thought he might be able to outmaneuver, right, his own brokenness and start over, start fresh with this perfect, untainted wife, right? They were going to make everything perfect. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. Now, I want to be super clear here. The problem in the tent was not actually Leah. The problem in the tent was not Leah. And the solution really wasn't Rachel, right? Leah wasn't evil. Rachel wasn't a goddess and perfect. She was just a human being. I found a Baptist preacher, actually, who was writing a bit about this passage online. He said, but Rachel was a human being turned into an idol by our friend Jacob. We know, friends, of course, that things like true love or a successful career or a happy family, like these are beautiful, these are fragile gifts from God. But when we treat them as ultimate things rather than the gifts that they are, they often collapse or at the very least disappoint because they cannot hold the weight of our very souls. There is only one creator that can do that. Now, I know the vast majority of you in this space right now, I know how perfect and wonderful you are and how amazing your own, right, lives and families are. I also know all of the difficulties or many of the broken places and all of the things. This is not to say that bad things happen and that's a good thing. But this is to say, when we hold as idols those things that we treasure, even things like our own family, they cannot bear the weight, right? They cannot stand up to the test of time because nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect in this life. This Baptist preacher went on to say, if you marry Rachel thinking that she will cure your loneliness forever, you will crush her. If you get that dream job thinking it will validate your existence, it will empty you. We expect somehow that our earthly achievements to act, or we expect our earthly achievements to act somehow like God's, right? We want our fantasies to play the role of God in our lives, but they make terrible substitutes. We pour out our identity into relationships and bank accounts and clothes and wardrobes and pristine reputations or club memberships. And we sleep soundly like Jacob that night, right? Thinking that we've bought or achieved or won our security somehow. But the idol always breaks. And in the morning, behold, it's Leah. I want you to just think about this for a minute, right? You buy a new car. You love this new car. It's great. You've spent tons of time doing all of your research. What all of the perfect scores on the safety measures and all the things. You buy the car, and 2 weeks later, right, the engine lights fail, and right, like you get hit by another car, you lose all the value, and behold, right, it was Leah. You marry your soulmate, map out your whole future, it's all going to be perfect, and then you wake up one morning and roll over, and behold, it is Leah. You vote for the perfect politician who's going to change your community or change the world, or right, bring all the things that you want back into our national identity. But then you pick up the paper the next morning and behold, it was Leah, right? You find the perfect college. You get the perfect job. And then you go and you sit down at your desk one Monday morning, feeling just as empty as you've ever felt. And behold, it was Leah. There's a pattern here, yeah? Leah, friends, is the reality that we don't ever actually sign up for. But sometimes we get it. The unchosen path, the diagnosis, right, that crushes us, the child who struggles, the broken relationship, right, the unglamorous, painful truth of what is this beautiful but fallen world. Now, I don't want to depress everyone here. Jordan's like, bring it up, bring it up, bring it up. If we end here, we are just in a rolling stone hell of right on a loop. You don't always get what you want. You don't always get what you want. You don't always get what you want. Right? That's not where we end, because our God, the God that we come together to worship, to hear about, to pray about, to sing about, right? Our God specializes in working through the things that the world rejects, like the smallest of seeds, right? Like yeast, like these simple fishermen of this morning. I want you to just stick with me for a second, because there is redemption here, and that's the point. There is always redemption when God is involved. Who knows what becomes of Leah? Anyone? A couple hands. What becomes of Leah? Cheryl. Thank you so much. She goes on to give birth to many a son of Jacob's, right? One of them is Levi of the priests, right? The Levite priestly. These are the many tribes of Israel that go on to populate the world, right? So on and so forth. But Judah, her son Judah, right, becomes one of the forefathers of no one other than King David, who goes on to father more children, who then traces down to one Jesus of Nazareth. It is through Leah's line, not Rachel's, Leah's line, that God works salvation. And interestingly, Leah is the one that ends up with Jacob in the family tomb with all of the other ancestors, not Rachel. Rachel had her moments, but God worked salvation through Leah. Doesn't make Rachel any less than. I'm sure she was lovely. But God chose differently for Jacob. Friends, maybe, just maybe, we need to stop waiting for the fantasies, right, of our dreams to fill us and to make everything right, right? Maybe we need to open our eyes more and accept more the daylight of reality, even when it's disappointing. Because our disappointment may actually be the very soil where God is offering us redemption and grace in ways we couldn't even have imagined. You don't always get what you want, friends. But if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. That's exactly right. Sometimes we get infinitely better than what we thought we needed. God does not just meet us in our Rachels. God works through our Leahs, right? Grace arrives not when life matches our fantasies, but when we wake up, when we turn and see on the pillow next to us the truth and find God waiting there in the daylight. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah.